All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the New York Power Hour. My name is Peter. Uh, on the other side of the screen, you have my good friend Luke, not Jeff. My internet connection just started as soon as I hit "Let's go live." My internet connection seems like it really just wanted to take a shit. So if there's a delay on my end, that's why. I apologize. Luke, how you doing this fine Wednesday?
I'm doing great. I'm very overwhelmed by the New York sports news that's really going on right now. There's just so much going on that I can't consume it all at once, right? I feel so bogged down with everything that's going on in New York sports right now. So Peter, just give me a highlight on what's going on in New York sports right now.
Well, hello, Ed. Hello. I also apologize if you can hear my dog in the background. He's just decided he wants to make a bunch of noise. So I will be.
He also wants to talk about everything that's going on in New York sports right now because there's so much going on in New York sports. It's insane.
There's a ton. I understand that me and Ram are both kind of the make fun of the Yankees guys on this podcast, but I genuinely put forth effort to find talking points about the Yankees today. And genuinely, the thing that I've seen have the most traction with Yankee fans is Brian Cashman's coffee order. So there that is. If you care about that at all, apparently he's a Starbucks man. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought a guy who makes millions of dollars goes and gets coffee at Starbucks? I'm so surprised by that. I don't know. Peter. I'm not a coffee drinker, so I have no dog in this fight. Is that a bad drink? Like, is that what?
I don't know. I myself am not a Starbucks drinker. I am a Dunks guy. 2 cream, 3 mocha swirl. Call it a day. Less ice. Less ice as well.
Yeah.
So
maybe that's a scandal here. I mean, maybe that's the scandal here.
Is it a scandal? Ed thinks it's a good order.
Then it's not. It can't be a scandal. No, it can't be a scandal if Ed doesn't think it's a bad order. So, I don't know. Maybe because he's not a Dunkin' Donuts guy. Maybe because he's a Starbucks guy. I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, this is just all way too overwhelming for me. Like, this is way too much. Way too much.
Brian Cashman doesn't have that problem, Ed.
Yeah.
And in Mets news, honestly, there's not too much to talk about. Brett Brady hurt his hamstring. Is not expected to miss much spring training at all. He's taking reps at first pretty much right now. It seems like they will slow roll him, getting reps in the outfield until the hamstring's ready. With Lou Bob, he's been hurt his entire career, so they're like, well, we're just going to take it easy at spring. Who cares? And Bo Bichette looks like he's never played third base before.
What are your thoughts? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, what are your thoughts on keeping Lou Bob out, or keeping it
smart? It's spring. Who gives a shit? It's like he's not learning a new position, center field. With considering that he has spent a lot of his career hurt, why would you put more wear and tear than you need to on his body? Is there
a concern on your side that maybe he doesn't get enough at bats during spring training to really get himself ramped up for the start of the season?
No, because I think he will get at bats as we get more to the meat of spring training, and he'll probably DH a ton. So I'm not super worried about it, honestly. No.
Okay. And what are your thoughts on Beatty at first base? I mean, it seems very clear that they want to do Bichette at third. They're banking on Lindor being back for opening day, which everything I've read, he should be fine. His hand should heal by then. It's his hand, right?
Yeah, a handmade bone in his.
Yeah. He should be back by opening day. Again, you assume Marcus Semien's got second base locked down. Jorge Polanco too. So what are your thoughts on Beatty at first base?
Yeah, as far as right now, like especially since he has the hamstring issue, you don't necessarily want him to traveling much in right field. Like there was talk about that. I think right now the smart move is to keep Beatty at first and get Beatty, Vientos, and Polanco as much first base reps as you can, especially since Bo Bichette is playing a new position at third. So you want, and he's he's expected to get the lion's share of playing time there at third. So you want him as ready as he can be. Beatty can play third base, no issues. Polanco can play a solid second and okay third. He's not a great defender, but it's not why you brought him in there to defend. So it's fine. Listen, it's a long season. We saw these Mets get hurt all up and down their roster last year. Having players in positions they don't normally play because you have a plethora of guys is a problem that I will take every year. So it is what it is.
I think, you know, with Beatty getting reps at first base, Polanco getting reps at first base, as a Mets fan, is there a little bit of disappointment that the Mets didn't move Vientos during the offseason to try and get depth in another position?
No, because he had what were you going to get for him? He had no value. You weren't going to get anything back from Mark Vientos that's going to be better than you have currently. This is going to be his second full season. Because he did play a lot, have a lot of bats in 2024, but it was not a full season. He had a cup of coffee the year before that. So this is going to be a second full season. We've seen what he can do we've seen the ceiling and we've seen the floor. Do I think we're ever going to see 2024 Mark Vientos ever again? Probably not. If you look at a lot of the projections, projections seem to love him. I disagree heavily. I don't think he's going to have a 30 home run season, but I've seen in the range of 20 to 25 to 30 home runs for him. I don't even think he's going to have the at-bats for that. If this year his main role is a righty bat off the bench that can play a little bit of first base and DH, sure. I mean, you need that. You need, players off the bench. So, yeah, his defense sucks. So you'd be there for hitting. But, if you told me the Mets were kind of going to do a platoon at DH where Vientos hits the lefties and Polanco hits the righties, I'm fine with that. That's okay.
Yeah. I guess how long is the leash for Mark Vientos? Given the depth that you have at first base, I don't know what you have in the minors, to kind of give opportunities to other guys.
Oh, well, Ryan Clifford.
Yeah. I mean, that's someone that you could be bringing up and giving reps to, giving at bats to. I'm curious. I'm curious how much leeway the Mets give Mark Vientos, which is how bad he was last year, and just knowing that he's a liability at defense. And I know one of the big things this offseason was run prevention, and he is not going to help you prevent runs. Mm-hmm. And it's still a major question on whether he can produce runs, right?
Yeah. I mean, listen, I know, and I said that a lot because David Stern said it a lot, but based off the offseason moves, I don't know if run prevention was truly his top target. I mean, Bo Bichette was never a very good defensive shortstop, and he brought him in to play a whole new position that he's never played before at third. Now we have seen some pretty high-profile examples of that panning out very successfully. Luke, one very well. As much as Ram likes to give A-Rod shit for not going over to third. For Jeter shit for not going over to third. That was probably the right call. So as far as a leash goes, I think he has a longer leash than both of us would expect. Yes, Steve Cohen doesn't have a problem spending an obscene amount of money. You have a player making $50 million. I believe Bo Bichette's contract's $42 million for this year. And then Lindor's 32, which at this point, it seems like one of the best contracts in baseball. But you're having three off the top of my head. You're making 30+ million. I know Luis Robert is on a $20 million. So, for all intents and purposes, Mark Vientos is free. So, even if he's not that good, if he's basically a bench bat, doesn't play that often, just kind of there to give somebody a day off, you probably keep him on the roster.
Yeah, I can't disagree with the fact that he's free, right? In terms of monetary value. I guess for me it's just, is he taking away from other opportunities, right? Is, there comes a point when you're not producing in the field, right? And I think we talked about this yesterday, right? With the Yankees, right? Ryan McMahon is not a top tier hitter. I wouldn't even say he's a mid tier hitter, right? I would say he's on the lower side, a ton of swing and miss, but a Gold Glover, Gold Glover at third base, and I would take that, in the eighth or ninth spot in my lineup, because he can do run prevention on defense, right? But if Mark Vientos is batting eighth or ninth in your lineup and he's providing nothing in the field, then he's taking away from others who could be producing or developing, right? I know Vientos is still young. Maybe there's still a buffer period for development, but it just seems like the MLB, it's, you have a very short window to prove that you're an MLB player. And if you can't do that in that short window, they're moving on to the next guy. And it seems like the Mets have done a really good job bringing in prospects to say, hey, this guy is the next guy, and let's get him some reps. So yeah. I think there is a shorter leash on Mark Vientos right now. I think there's a lot for him to prove. I think there's definitely pressure on him to start the season. Because if he can't produce with the bat, then I think that's really it. I think that's really it. And I think you hit the nail on the head too. I'm sure there wasn't a lot of trade value coming from Mark Vientos either, right? People saw there were holes, there's holes in his game. Everyone knew that he couldn't field. So what value is he going to bring? And if it doesn't get any better, then, you can't get any lower than zero, right? So it seems like there's going to be a lot of pressure for Mark Vientos to start the season, and the Mets will find out if he can rise to the occasion or not.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I do trust David Stearns. I think he will make the right call as far as that goes. Steve Cohen talked either yesterday or the day before to the media a little bit, kind of talking about how always prepared David Stearns and the Mets front office are. Obviously, keeping in mind with the Kyle Tucker thing, how they were able to pivot to Bo Bichette pretty seamlessly. It was like we went to bed, Kyle Tucker was a Dodger, we woke up, Bo Bichette was a Met. Yeah. And like that happened just because of the prep work that David, he didn't just hyper focus on Kyle Tucker. He had a bunch of pieces moving at the same time. So if there is value to be had from Mark Vientos, not on the Mets, I trust David Stearns will be able to extract that.
I just, and I think people,
but I don't know. I don't think it's there either.
No, but I want to go back on this point. I'm sorry. I'm not giving credit to David Stearns for pivoting from Kyle Tucker. And you and I have talked about this before. Ram and I, we've talked about this with Ram. I think we've talked about this on the show, right? Mm-hmm. That was not a David Stearns signing, and we know that.
Yes, it was.
It was not. It was not. It was absolutely not. It was 100% Steve Cohen saying, "I have the money. I was willing to spend it on Kyle Tucker. Now I'm gonna pivot. Now I'm gonna pivot to Bo Bichette."
Steve Cohen does not run the day-to-day operations of the New York Mets. David Stearns does. So is Steve Cohen calling David Stearns and saying, "Get it done. I don't care how much it costs"? Maybe, but if the Mets did not want Bo Bichette, Steve Cohen's not going to say, "Get him. I don't care. I don't care what your plans are."
Yeah, I don't know. I find that really. I mean, I believe the day-to-day, and that's fine if you want to eat that up. But if Steve Cohen wants someone, he's going to call David Stearns and say, "I want this guy. Go get him. And here's how much I'm willing to spend on him." I can't imagine that's not a conversation that goes on between Steve Cohen and I'm not saying, and Peter, I'm not saying it's right and I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying this is what exists. And this is an owner that loves his team. right? He is a lifelong Met fan, right? And he is willing to put whatever it is to put to try and get the best names out there. And it's very paralleled to George Steinbrenner in the 90s and the early 2000s.
Look, if that was the case, we would not have had the December. If that was true, Mets fans would not have had the December that we had, where we sat and waited and did nothing. If Steve Cohen was truly sitting there being like, "I want him, and I want him, and I want him, and this is how much," then December wouldn't have happened. We would have gotten all these guys in December, and we'd be sitting there like, "Yay!" Like, I listen. I do understand your point, and like, if Steve Cohen did not want Juan Soto would not be a Met. Sure, I completely agree with you on that one.
Right.
But
if Steve Cohen was not the owner of the New York Mets, Juan Soto would not be a New York Met.
Correct, he'd be a New York Yankee. I agree with you there. But when you look at the Bo Bichette contract, yes, it's a lot of money, but it's basically a 1-year deal. Ram corrected me where with the $5 million buyout thing that it's a 1-year deal if he plays even close to what anybody thinks he's going to play. So you had a bunch of money to spend because you lost Pete to free agency, you lost Edwin to free agency, you had a bunch of money taken off your books. So once Kyle Tucker left, it was Bo Bichette and then a pretty big drop off from there. So at that point, you just sign the player. So I don't think this was a Steve Cohen thing because it was just super obvious who was the next guy in line.
Yeah, and that's my exact point, is that he was the next guy in line, and Steve Cohen was like, I want the next guy. It doesn't matter, give him a 1-year deal, right? We have some kind of, I think at that point, it was already out there that the Phillies put an offer out for Bo Bichette.
He was going to be a Philly, and then the Mets were like, the Mets swooped in and beat them in terms of AAV, right? And for Bichette, it makes sense, right? Let me get that 1-year deal. I can, it's sort of the same idea as Pete Alonso last year, right? I want to be a New York Met because I can hit in the lineup between Francisco Lindor and Juan Soto. I'll take my 1-year prove it deal. He proved it, right? Mm-hmm. Pete Alonso proved it. He was a Silver Slugger last year, 100 plus RBIs. 30, 40 home runs. I can't remember. In that ballpark. We saw 2 of them. That was pretty cool.
We did. And he broke the Mets home run record, right? Yeah. It's the same idea for Bo Bichette, right? I can come to the New York Mets. I can hit between Lindor and Soto. I can prove my value again because there were pieces here and there last season that, he can still hit. His defense is kind of mid, but I'm still a playmaker. I can still run. Let me take my $42 million and then try and get the long-term contract next year, right? Maybe make a little bit more than I think it was 28 million a year with the Phillies. Mm-hmm. So, maybe I can get north of 30 million on a long-term deal. I'm still under 30 at the end of next season, right? So it makes sense for Bichette, and again, for me, it makes sense. It makes sense from the Cohen perspective, right? I want the best guy. I thought I had the best guy. Because we went through the whole timeline of the Kyle Tucker thing, right? Like, it seemed like Steve Cohen was convinced they had Kyle Tucker, right? Yeah. Like it seems like he had them locked up, and the big bad Dodgers came in with their deferred money and swooped them up. It happened. It happened, and I think it's more Steve Cohen pivoted, not David Stearns. But
that's it. We don't have to agree, Luke. That's okay. I don't even think you're necessarily like 100% wrong. There's this this idea out there, and it's a lot of it's Mets fans too. Anytime the Mets get a player I like, it's Steve Cohen. Anytime the Mets do something I don't like, it's David Stearns. And it's like, it's not that simple, folks. It's not that simple. Yeah. But this is seems like a pretty decent chance to transition to I guess the next talking point that I had for the Mets. Steve Phillips went on MLB Network and spouted some bullshit. He thinks the Mets are the least improved team from the offseason. One of the least improved teams of the offseason, and predicts them to finish third in the NL East. Believe it or not, I think that the part of this that is more bullshit is least improved teams, not necessarily third, although nothing about the Phillies and Braves news in the past couple of weeks really excites me that much. In case you don't know who Steve Phillips is, he used to be the GM for the Mets. He was actually the GM when they were in the Subway World Series in 2000. He did build a pretty good team. I'll give him that. Al Leiter, Mark Piazza, Robert Ventura, and that was a good team. But he also drafted David Wright. Full credit there. That they also made great draftings like Langston Millage, great signings, Mo Vaughn, Bobby Bonilla, Ricky Henderson, just to name a few. Jason Bay's a Met because of him. So
Jason Bay.
Yeah. So anyway, a little bit of hit and miss stuff there. He's not necessarily the most. If he was the smartest guy in the room, he'd have a job right now in a GM office. But anyway, so that gave me the idea to put the starting teams for the Mets, the Braves, and the Phillies on a spreadsheet for you all to see, because I think everyone can agree one of those three teams is going to win the division.
Can I just say something? The Mets, sure. The Mets aren't even. They're not the least improved team in New York. Like, I think objectively, I'll say, and I've said this before, the New York Yankees just stayed stagnant, right? I think really their only improvement is the fact that you might get Garrett Cole in the second half of the season coming off Tommy John surgery, right?
And that's a solid get, yeah.
That's an improvement, but that's not an improvement that was done by the front office, right? Like Brian Cashman didn't go and say, "Hey, Garrett Cole, like why don't you come back and pitch the second half of the season?" Like, no, Garrett Cole has been a New York Yankee. He's been here, right? I would almost argue the roster's gotten worse because it's aged another year, right? I don't know. It's a very stagnant roster. Whereas the Mets move pieces around. The Mets move pieces around and are trying something different after the walloping that they took at the end of last season, right?
Yeah, listen, Brian Mothers was a good trade. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not even being a jerk, right? It was a good trade.
Yeah. And I don't know. I don't know how you look at the performance in the second half of the season and say, let's keep things the way they are, right? Because to me, it's like you got to tear it down. Like, you got to tear some part down. And in this case, David Stern said, we're going to tear almost this whole thing up, and we're going to rebuild. We're going to rebuild from we're going to retool, right? Because this wasn't a full rebuild, right? You had pieces there that can stay, right? You had Juan Soto, you have Frankie Lindor, you have Alvarez, the addition of Peralta, but I mean, you still had a young pitching staff in McLean, Tong, Senga. I don't know. I don't know what your feelings, I don't know what your feelings are on Senga. But I can't. I don't know. It just seems so far-fetched to say that this team is the least improved. You lost pieces. You lost Diaz. You lost Alonso. But I feel like you've gained in other places.
I agree. Listen, I loved so many of those players that are no longer Mets. 2025 sucked, and it's probably the reason why they're not here. Most of them aren't here. But 2024 was the most fun I've ever had in a baseball season, and that includes making the World Series in 2015. So I loved a lot of these players, but they also didn't win. They didn't win shit. Way too many collapses. You had your last series against, I think it was 2022, your last series against the Braves. You had to win one of those last three to win the division and make the playoffs. To win the division. They already made the playoffs. They got swept. Played the Braves in the wild card round. Did not make it out of the wild card round, and a bunch of other fun shit. So, they did exactly what you said. They retooled. Are these new players going to work out? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but if you keep running back the same shit over and over again, that doesn't work. You're insane. So, I hope it works, but props for, Steve Cohen, David Stearns, and those guys to have the balls to do it. Because obviously, especially when, like I mentioned, that lull in December when we lost everybody and nothing happened, people like me weren't quiet about it. We were loudly angry. So props for them for doing it anyway. I think it's for the betterment of the club. Luke, I'm going to do something rare, and I'm actually going to take talk anymore about the Mets lineup. But I mean, Luke, between those, that I can take us out and make it bigger again if you want. Which one do you like more?
Between the three?
Yeah.
So I've had recent discussions about the Braves lineup, and you kind of look at it on paper, and you're like, they could do some things, right? They could do some things, but the thing with the Braves is that you look at the injury history, right? Ronald Acuna Jr., Jurickson Profar with PEDs, Austin Riley, Ozzie Albies, Michael Harris with the inconsistency, right? Like, if these guys are all at their peak, I think the Braves lineup is the best in the NL East. But I wasn't a huge fan of the Mets lineup maybe 2 months ago. But you start looking at it up and down. Lindor is a great leadoff hitter. Soto's in a completely different stratosphere. I think Bo Bichette can figure it out, especially hitting behind Lindor and Soto. Polanco is very underrated. Yeah, it's a good call, Ed. It's a good call.
And also, I did not mentally think taking us backstage would make you can't hear the audio. I was just, let's make the screen bigger. So yeah, Luke, I went on that whole tirade. You didn't hear shit. So let's sick. Great podcasting. So I apologize.
Yeah, I have no idea. I have no idea what you were saying. I didn't want to be rude, but I have no idea what's going on. And I'm sure you're really still upset about Steve Phillips' comments. So, yeah, I don't know. Do
you want to make my point again real quick?
No, you don't have. I won't make you live it again. I think there are positives and negatives to all of these lineups. I guess that's my point. I think the Mets front to back is the best lineup in the NL East. I think the Phillies have the best rotation. I think if Swellenbach is healthy, I think if Sale is healthy, I think if Spencer Strider is at the top of his game, I think the Braves have the best rotation, right? But again, it's this question of health with the Braves that makes it really difficult to say, these guys are going to be at the top of the NL East. I think the Mets have a good rotation. I think Freddie Peralta is a great pitcher. I think Nolan McLean is great. I think he still has a lot to prove. David Peterson is David Peterson. He's always going to show up around tournament time.
This is a David Peterson podcast. Don't forget.
Right. There's nothing bad I can say about David Peterson. It's that back half that makes me nervous, right? It's the Clay Holmes that can only throw 5 innings. Sean Manaea, who just looks disastrous in the last half of the season. And same with Kodai Senga, to the point that he got sent down to the minors. If Kodai Senga is the Kodai Senga the first half of the season, there's a very good argument that he's your SP1, right? But if he's the sample size that you got the last half of the season, then no, I'm very nervous. I'm very nervous about that. And in terms of bullpen, I think, Luke, going right to Luke Weaver. I mean, Luke Weaver is great. Devin Williams is great. But they've shown their bad side in points of last season. I'm a big Luke Weaver believer, but I think he was really just fed up with the fact that the Yankees refused to make him the closer, even though he excelled there. I like the 1-2 in Robert Suarez and Iglesias, but again, I think the Phillies have the best bullpen there. Looking at Keller, Alvarado, and Duran, I think those are 3 guys that I'd feel really comfortable turning to 7, 8, 9. So I have to give the edge to the Phillies. I think it's going to be a dogfight. I think it's going to be a dogfight between the Mets and the Phillies. If the Braves can be healthy, yeah, they can be there. It's just a huge question mark for me. But I think the Mets are constructed to compete with the Phillies this year to win the NL East.
Yeah,
that'll be my take.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think there's question marks all over the board. I do think that the Mets. I think that their ceiling isn't as high as the Braves could be, but I think the floor is much worse for the Phillies and the Braves and the Mets. Are we going to see the Mets at their top peak? I don't know. Yeah, if Kodai Senga is a huge question mark and Sean Manaea, they're both huge question marks in there. For me, if Clay Holmes is your 4th, 5th starter and he's giving you 5 solid innings, I'll take that.
Fine. That's fine.
David Peterson, again, if he finds more consistency, I'll be much more happier. I think Nolan McLean's a superstar in the waiting, and Freddie Peralta is a top 20 pitcher in the MLB, so that's sick. With the Braves, Chris Sale, he's old and has injury concerns. When he's healthy, he's great, but he's not always healthy. And that losing Schwellenbacher is a huge hit to them. They have a decent bullpen. I like Iglesias and Suarez. I think it kind of falls off a cliff a little bit after that. And looking at their bats, again, Ronald Acuna Jr. is a superstar, but he's always hurt. Matt Olson's consistent. Jerickson Profar, is he going to get on the roids again? I don't know. Drake Baldwin, Rookie of the Year. Austin Riley had a dreadful year last year, but there's a lot of talent there. Mike Yastrzemski's 40 years old. Austin Albies is, he is who he is. Michael Harris, he either looks good or it looks bad. And Mauricio Dubon, I guess he's better than what they had Nick Allen last year. So that's an improvement there. I mean, the Phillies bullpen, yeah, I like their 9, 8, 7 guys, but then I see a name like Zach Pop, and I'm like, that's not good. I mean, it's good for me because he sucks, and their starters, like Christopher Sanchez is great. Jesus Luzardo is good, but there is inconsistency issues. I know this because I have him in fantasy. Aaron Nola is kind of washed, in my opinion.
No, he had a tough year last year.
Taijuan Walker is just ass, and Andrew Painter, a lot of potential there. He had to have really bad AAA last year, but I don't put too much stock in that if I'm not being a hater. So, yeah. But they also then in the lineup they also have Alec Bohm, so they suck.
What if I told you Mike Yastrzemski is 31 years old?
He's been in the league since I was like 10, so I don't believe you.
Okay, well he's 35.
Okay, so I in the middle, great.
Yeah. I think if you look at the depth, I think the Mets definitely have an advantage in terms of depth, particularly in starting pitching with how much they have in the AAA right now in Tong, in Winiger.
Christian
I know
Scott. Christian
Scott as well. I mean, they have plenty of arms to grab from in AAA. I don't know if that's the same for the Braves. The Braves do have this weird thing of taking these, sort of low-end prospects and just bringing them right through the ranks. And then all of a sudden, whoa, they're a superstar pitcher like Swellenbach, like Spencer Strider. It's definitely conceivable for the Braves to do something like that.
Us Mets fans have a term for that. It's called Braves Devil Magic.
Yeah, it's just really good scouting. As an objective baseball fan, some would call it that. But if it helps,
I like my POV better.
If it helps you sleep at night to call it devil magic, I won't take that away from you, Peter.
Thank you. Take that away from you. You're a good man, Luke. I don't care what Ram says about you.
what Chris says about me in the group chat. Yeah. I think it's safe to say the Nationals are not going to be competitive this year. I think they had an opportunity to, and I think maybe that's a little far-fetched, but they moved on from Matt Gore. But you still had Dylan Cruz. You still had Ruiz at catcher. I don't know. I felt like they had and they have James Wood. I felt like they had a pretty good roster that they could build around, and I don't know. It just seems like they punted on it there. The Marlins aren't bad. The Marlins were actually one of the better teams in the second half of the season. I would keep an eye on them. I would absolutely keep an eye on them. Sandy Alcantara was phenomenal the second half of the season. It seems like he had sort of shaking off the rust from coming back from Tommy John surgery, and after the All-Star break, he was one of the best pitchers. Yuri Perez is regarded as one of the top young pitchers in the MLB. They have just a bunch of young pieces over there. So I would keep your eye on the Marlins too. I would absolutely keep your eye on the Marlins as well. I know they moved on from Edward Cabrera, but they got back. I can't think of his name right now. Owen Cassey. They got back Owen Cassey, so they get more depth in the outfield. Jacob Marcy was great after he got called up. So I'd keep your eyes. I'd keep your eyes on the Marlins.
No, I mean, listen, as far as the standings, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs or even sniff it this year. But the Marlins are a giant pain in the ass, and I mean that in the most respectful way to their talent. Like they're a tough team. They're a tough team. They're going to take games away from all of these, the big three in the NL East.
It's a weird, it's something about going down to Florida, like playing in Miami. I know the Mets, the Mets have always struggled in Miami. The Yankees have struggled playing in Miami. I don't know what it is. It's just the lull of playing down there. So they always have that advantage as well. I don't know. Just kind of tuck that in your pocket, and it's not a final thought or a prediction, but just sort of keep your eye out on the Marlins.
Yeah. The only other big thing of note that I have in baseball that happened is Tony Clark is out of the the head of the Players Association, and today it was announced that Bruce Meyer will be the new leader of it. Quite honestly, I don't have much to say about him. I don't really know. I don't pay attention to the presidents and vice presidents of these things. I was listening to David Ottavino's podcast, former Met and Yankee, and he's basically just said, he's the number 2 guy there under Tony Clark, so it's more of the same regime, so there shouldn't be too much change. So I don't think it's really going to matter that much as far as the negotiations go for the pending lockout. I think it's going to happen regardless. So I guess we'll see how that goes. It's going to be I'm not looking forward to 2027. We're definitely going to miss games.
Yeah, I think I would start, trying to pick out who your favorite, Nippon baseball team is. Start figuring out who you like in the KBO, because you're going to be watching a lot of highlights. If you like getting up at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning and watching those games, you're going to be watching a lot of Japanese and Korean baseball to at least start the baseball season. There is a lockout pending. It's an interesting time for the MLBPA. I know there was a lot of criticism about Tony Clark. I think they tried to oust Tony Clark back in 2023. I am not a fan of the lockout, the previous lockout that had happened, and what they had gained from that. Really, all they did was push the ceiling, which again doesn't help with the lack of competitive balance there is in the MLB, and the teams desire to spend money. Right. All you did is just give more ammunition to, teams like the Dodgers, the Mets, and the Yankees to spend more money, and actually give more to the lower, to the smaller market teams. So I wasn't a huge fan of the lockout. I think, small wins are, getting some more money for the minor league teams or minor league players. But at the same time, Manfred axed, 25% of the minor league teams that existed out there. So you've actually, made your pool of minor league players smaller by doing so. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting crossroads. If this was a move by the players or, the rest of the brass to nudge Tony out. Because my understanding is he was nudged out because he was having an affair with his sister-in-law, which kind of brought up one of the biggest questions in a lot of group chats right now, which is which is worse, to sleep with your brother's wife or your wife's sister. I think philosophers till the end of time will debate that. And we'll actually never know which one it is. And I actually don't want to know. I just like the idea of it could be one or it could be the other. And neither are great. Neither are good. Actually, both are bad. So I don't know. If it was a move by the players in the union or, members of the union to oust Tony Clark, and this was their way of doing it, I think it should have happened earlier. I think it should have happened a lot earlier, because now you're looking at one season to kind of ramp up, get your ducks in a row with this new guy. So he's got he's been second in command, so he has plenty of experience. It's not like he's going to show up at the table and not know what he's doing. And the other thing too is if you were looking for a fresh face, you wouldn't have gone to the second in command. You would have found someone else to do so. So maybe it was just sort of a personality. Maybe it was just a personnel. They still believe in the philosophy, but they just didn't feel like Tony Clark was the guy to lead them in the charge. So it's going to be interesting. We always knew it was going to be interesting. I don't think this is going to have any impact on what's going to happen next season.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all. It just sucks because baseball was really starting to gain some momentum. They were starting to get younger viewers. For years, it was, the average age got older and older. They're finally starting to see some youth. Like, yeah, we can disagree and argue about the time clock and all this stuff, but it has improved the TV watching experience, which is what the commissioner and these owners care about.
Yeah.
So yeah, it has definitely ruined the going to the game experience because these games aren't as long. But if it's growing the popularity of the sport because it's easier to it's more palatable to sit there for 2.5 hours, maybe 3, instead of like 3.5 to 4 hour games. Sure, I'll sacrifice that for the good of the game. I don't care, but we're going to kill the momentum again. And we've seen lockouts before. Not only kill momentum, sometimes they can straight up kill teams, like the Expos. So, it's just I'm expecting the worst. I expect we're going to miss at least half of the games, if not the whole season. I've heard talks people like, oh, it's going to be like the Dodgers and the Mets versus MLB. It's not. The Dodgers and the Mets are going to. Steve Cohen even said like he's an owner, like he's going to be with the owners. So it's it's going to be all the rich billionaires versus the rich millionaires. So. At the end of the day, obviously I want there to be baseball, and probably the thing I care about the most is that the minor leaguers are better taken care of. They obviously compared to other jobs, they make decent money, but they're also not full-time employees, so they don't make that much in the scheme of things.
No, it's tough. It's tough being a minor leaguer. Some of these guys who are high drafted, sure, they get their draft signing bonus, but a lot of the guys are late round draft picks. Not high signing bonuses and making less than $40,000 a year, and that's within a 6-month span, right? Because they're not getting paid. They're not getting paid in the off season. So, I don't know. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. And I think you had mentioned before that, the MLB is starting to get momentum, and, you asked me, if you asked me in 2021, I would have said that the MLB was in danger of failing out. I mean, it was definitely a sport that, refused to modernize, refused to meet the youth. You saw hockey made a huge change. And, I usually don't like giving credit to ESPN, but getting those rights with ESPN, getting hockey on ESPN Plus, making it more accessible, and really highlighting the stars and not so much the players. It took the model of the NBA, right, where the NBA would say, oh, LeBron's playing tonight, Steph Curry's playing tonight, tune in for that. It became the same thing for the NHL. Connor McDavid's playing tonight, Ovechkin's playing tonight, Sidney Crosby's playing tonight. these are the guys, we're going to start doing broadcasts and we're just going to hone in on these guys, right? You can watch them, the best players in the world and see what they're doing at all points throughout the game. Right. And I think the NHL has really grown in the last decade because of that. And, I'll give Rob Manfred some credit. Over the last couple of years, he's made those changes. So it's tough. Like it's tough when you have all this momentum going. You have the WBC this year, which I know a lot of people are excited about. And it's coming, and it's awesome because it's coming right off the Olympics, right? And you sort of have this this national pride, right? Like you're like, USA, right? We just, we won so many medals. You watch the women's hockey team, you watch the men's hockey team. If you're like me and you just get mesmerized by curling, right? And you just have this sense of nationalism that it's like, all right, yeah, now we're going to watch the baseball team and we're going to watch them compete against, the best nation, the best nations for baseball too. So there's so much good that's going on. And it's just, like you said, it's going to come to an abrupt halt. Peter, I do have a question for you.
Okay.
Do you agree that in all of the major sports, Rob Manfred is the most hated commissioner, like by the fan base?
No, I do not think he is. I'm actually shocked that you even asked me that question, considering how much of a hockey guy you are and how much hate Gary Bettman gets
Gary
all the time.
But I like the Gary Bettman stuff but it's so difficult because he's grown the sport. You know what I mean? And he owns it, right? Like,
yeah.
And I guess here's the thing. It's like, you look like 10 years ago, right? Everybody hated Roger Goodell, right? Like Roger Goodell was the most hated person in all of professional sports, right? And you know what he did? He just ate it up, right? Like you would go and you'd watch the drafts and he would come up and everyone would just start booing. He was just like, yeah, bring it on. Like, whatever,
Yeah. And he did lack some of the rules, like, that the NFL, the no fun league thing, that he just, they made it so players can celebrate a little bit more and that kind of stuff, which helped. But as far as the Gary Bettman stuff goes, yes, he does get booed every time, but it is kind of starting to turn into like the Kurt Angle "you suck" chants.
Yeah.
Where it's, there's the boos are still there, but it's a little bit more like, hey. I mean, at this point, Gary's worst flaw is probably that he refuses to not stop trying to put teams in the South. Like, we'll put a third team in Atlanta. It's really going to work this time, guys.
Yeah.
Like, that's probably his biggest flaw.
Yeah. No, yeah. I don't know. I think the hate for Gary Bettman has become more a meme than anything else. Like, I think there is actually rooted hatred for Rob Manfred and just how he's run this league.
And even disparaging his own trophy.
I do, and I know I have personal investment in this, but I don't like how the Astro scandal was handled. I think it was very poorly handled by Rob Manfred. I think there should have been a lot more onus on the owner, who owns the stadium, that, was making changes. And I don't think it's an acceptable answer for the owner of the organization to say he was not aware that they put a camera in center field. Like that's a load of bull crap. And for you to accept that is just, it's ignorant. It really is ignorant. And I get it. He's Crane is Manfred's boss, right? Like, but still you have 31, you have 30, 29, 31. How many teams are in the MLB? 30 or 32? I can't remember.
I think it's 32.
30. Yeah. You have 31 other owners that you're responsible for, as well as a full-fledged fan bases across the country and across the world, that you're responsible for. And I thought it was so poorly run.
I agree. This next point is purely a devil's advocate thing. I think part of why he went softer, at least specifically on the players, is because he was worried that this could potentially be a league-wide issue, and if he granted immunity, he can kind of try to figure that out, as opposed to just getting everyone in trouble, and then there's no point in saying anything because you're in trouble anyway. So who cares? So I'll give him that. He was probably trying to just make sure it was just the Astros and not like everybody. I mean, there's been rumors that the Yankees and the Red Sox and even the Mets have done some sort of cheating, but none of that has really been substantiated. I'm sure they're all kind of doing it in some way, but nobody has done anything that egregious that we've
right. There's
been aware of.
I think they've talked about it a lot. There's a fine line between gamesmanship and cheating, right? Mm-hmm. Like every team is going out and trying to steal signs, right?
As they should,
right? I mean, I'm totally blanking on the Mets first base coach, right? But he's reading the pitcher, he's reading their tendencies, and that's what made the Mets such good base stealers last year, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's his job, right? There should be, I would hope that every MLB has someone on their bench that's reading the tendencies of the pitcher, reading the tendencies of the catcher, and trying to pick up on certain ticks to tell their players, hey, when he does this, then he's throwing this pitch, or when he does that, he's throwing a curveball, right? Like those things are happening. That is professional sport. But when you utilize your home field as an advantage to steal signs, right? That's when you take it too far.
Absolutely.
That's
yeah, like as far as you're right. You want that every team is trying to steal signs. As long as you keep it on the field, it's fine. I mean, one of the most magical moments of the 2024 Mets was Pete Alonso's home run in Milwaukee in the playoffs. That happened because Lindor picked up that Devin Williams was tipping his changeup.
Right.
So
there is nothing wrong with that. Right. There's nothing wrong with Francisco Lindor doing that. That is a professional baseball player. That is someone who should be paid $32 million a year on top of, being a phenomenal shortstop. Right. So I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of how that's run. Again, I'm not a fan of how these small markets just are allowed to not spend any money. I'm not a fan of all of these stadiums being built and them not putting retractable roofs or some kind of roof on them. Like that's something that bugs me too. Like we're in 2020 now, right? Like rain delays should be something of the past, right? Put a freaking roof on the stadium. Like,
could you imagine Yankee Stadium with a roof?
I could. I absolutely could. I could imagine it with a retractable roof, 100%. And then you don't have to do this BS. Makeup games and double headers. You play the days that are designated, unless there's some some event that rips the stadium off the ground, right? Like
Tampa.
Exactly. Right. I don't know. I just not a fan.
I understand your point and I don't disagree because it is super annoying, especially like a day you're like me and you don't. That's like you live much farther than I do to your home ballpark, but like it's a commute. It's not right there. So like if it gets rained out, it kind of ruins your whole day. But
I'm gonna be pissed if I buy tickets to a Yankees game now and it gets rained out. Because I'm not going back, right? Like I live so far away. I'm not going back. And even if I drive 3 hours to the Braves game, like I'm going to be pissed if it gets rained out.
But that's like doubleheader games. Like if you could try to go to like a single admission doubleheader, like that's kind of sick. That's like, but like I'm okay with losing that part of it if everyone gets a roof.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, not a fan. Not a fan of Rob Manfred. I hate the Ghost Runner. I think that's the stupidest rule. But other than that, I mean, yeah, I'll go as far as say I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. Well, I'm not a fan of the movement towards robot umpires.
Really?
Oh no, I'm not a fan of the of robot umpires. I think there needs to be a human aspect to the game. Something that has exists for century, over a century of baseball. I think you need a human element behind the plate. I don't like the, robot, this is definitely a ball. This is definitely a strike. Like it creates that intrigue for baseball. I think umpires should be held to a high standard. Like I don't think you should have a guy who has like 60% accuracy out there. Like I don't think that's how it should be. But
CB Buckner, cough cough.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. But I think they should be pushing the umpires to strive to be the best that they can possibly be. But no, I don't think we should have robot umpires. And if that's an edict of Robert Manfred's, I'm not a fan of.
I mean, it's all fun and games until an absolutely terrible call by the home plate umpire costs you a playoff win. So that's all I'll say on that. So
I'm a Detroit Lions fan. I've been screwed enough years by the refs that I'm immune to it at this point.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But anyway, that gets us to the hour mark. Luke, do you have any closing thoughts?
Just New York sports. Can you be a little bit more interesting right now? Like I don't have anything. Like there's nothing going on. Just can we get something? Like can we get something to talk about, something to debate? I love just chatting with Peter, but I need something more substantial. I need something more substantial from the New York sports team. So shake something up. I'm talking to you, Dolan.
Well, the Knicks won their last game. They haven't played since February 11th. But their next game is tomorrow against the Pistons, who are the number 1 seed in the East. So things are exciting in the basketball landscape. Unfortunately, me and you don't necessarily pay as much attention to that as say Ram, but Ram's not here. So thanks.
I watched the Celebrity All-Star game.
How was that?
It was interesting because they had like the team Giannis had 2 former players, Jeremy Lin, and I can't think of the other guy's name.
Jeremy Lin.
Yeah. No, Jeremy Lin hit like a big 4-point shot towards the end of the game. And Taco Fall played, and he's like 7'6", and I'm like, how is this fair? Like, and then Giannis was just like, just give the ball to Taco. Like, just give him. He would just dunk. Like, he would just dunk on everyone. It ended
Look,
up being,
were you in the tri-state area for the Linsanity run?
I was. Yeah.
What a magical time in the tri-state area.
I mean, what a cool 6 weeks. Like what a cool 6 weeks. And he's just, he's made a career out of it. And, kudos to him. I take nothing away from Jeremy Lin.
Yeah, it was outshining Kobe at the Garden. What a beautiful moment. I'll never forget. And this is going to be a really old sentence. Calling my local sports authority to ask if they had any Jeremy Lin Knicks jersey, and the guy asked, "Who's that?" And maybe that's why they're out of business now. They should have really hopped on that Jeremy Lin market more at the time. Is
that a real story?
Yes, 1,000%.
That is a real story.
Yes.
Peter sat and watched an NBA basketball game and then decided to call and try and buy an NBA basketball jersey.
Well, listen, you forget. I used to be big Knicks fan. Because when I was younger, I watched Knicks Rangers like religiously. I had nothing else going on in my life. And then we got rid of cable and I moved to Pennsylvania and my access to sports got limited. So, you can't watch everything anymore all the time. So the Knicks and the Rangers kind of fell to the wayside. Drew, I was such a hardcore Rangers fan. I was at work when the Rangers traded for Rick Nash, and my boss sent me home because I was too distracted.
Rick Nash.
I thought that was going to bring us the cup, man. I was like, oh, Rick Nash is here. And then,
It was.
So many what ifs.
Alas, it did not.
When that cup run where they lost in the finals, I think it was against the Canadians when they scored the tying goal with 0.3 seconds left.
Yeah,
I was like, they're winning the cup. It's fate. It has to happen.
Yeah. And then they got bounced by the Kings.
Don't worry, Ed. Listen, this was like a part-time summer job. I was like working for a friend of a family. Like it wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't actually a real job. So I wouldn't do that now. I watch my sports games while
He'll let you go home. He'll let you go home for the CBL draft, though.
Oh, totally. Listen, Ed. All I ask is if the Mets win the World Series, let me go to the fucking parade. Like I feel like I deserve that. I think Luke would back me up on that.
Absolutely, I'll be there with you.
Yes, Ed's now in the CBL, so we have to suffer together. But anyway, appreciate you guys slogging along for an hour when we didn't have that much to talk about. I apologize again for kicking me and Luke off the stream for, I don't know, a minute or two. That was unintentional. And but yeah. Thanks. Okay, bye.